pace of your work. I mean, if things don't work out, I mean, you have a choice to quit it and find another avenue. It might take time. There are friends who didn't want to get into the corporate sector, they didn't take up job. They struggled for a year, for a month, and then after they found another job. And there will be struggle, but nothing comes easy. But know this fact that struggle is very beautiful. I mean, imagine a person like Rahul Gandhi, for example. I don't know if somebody is a supporter of him, but Rahul Gandhi has been given the power. He has not attained it. So he has no story to tell. I mean, he cannot tell that I struggled for 2 to 3 years or 5 years to reach the point where I am reaching. Whereas other people like Arvind Kejriwal or Narendra Modi can actually tell the story, the struggle that they had. And that makes a very powerful life message. You find both these people, you might find them inspiring in some sense. But Rahul Gandhi doesn't seem to inspire you. That's the reason, because he has never struggled in his life. So it gives you a sense of fulfillment in your life if you struggle and achieve. See, I mean, you can think about Shah Rukh Khan, for example. He has been a self-made man, despite the kind of movies Chennai Express that he has been doing recently. But he is a self-made man, and that requires courage and guts, and that commands respect, despite the kind of movies. Last chocolate, this is identify this dude and identify his profession. Anybody? Sorry?
Is it you?
Yeah, it is me. Grab another chocolate. So this was shot in Solar Valley in Manali where I visited. I was staying with the same friend. You can see actually his parachute lying niche. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I find it embarrassing, but still I will. So I was born in 1989. A lot of people here might be my age or even older or younger. I grew up dreaming to travel the entire nation someday. This was my dream right from the very beginning. I didn't know anything else. Because I love traveling, I love getting lost on the roads on my little cycle that time. In 2004, when I was around 14 or 15 actually, I got 99 out of 100 in maths in class 9, and it was all by fluke. I just answered all the questions correctly. My dear parents thought that now that you are good in maths, you should become an engineer. And I thought, okay, why not? For the next 2 years, I became a nerdy, plump kid slogging for JEE. I didn't do anything else, day and night studying. I cracked JEE. I joined IIT Delhi, engineering physics. I couldn't fathom. I mean, I could understand physics, but I couldn't get interested in it. Mostly because the kind of teachers I had while preparing for JEE were much better than the kind of teachers I got when I joined the college. So there was a sudden dip in interest. You must have felt in your own case as well. And during that time when I was so frustrated with IIT, I actually started a blog and I started complaining about how I don't like IIT, how I wish I could go back to my teachers in the school days. And it started with that, and then I started writing more things. Wherever even in Delhi I bought a cycle, I loved getting lost around the campus, and I wrote stories about my adventures. So during that time I started writing and wrote a lot of stories. Some of them got published in Chicken Soup series during that time. And I freelanced. An interesting story of during that time was when I was in my second year, there was a magazine of the college, it's called Contact, that's the magazine's name. So I sent my articles for publishing in Contact. They didn't like it because of a lot of political reasons. So basically all the hostel gets points for the publishing of articles. They didn't like it, they rejected my article. And the same article got published in a newspaper later. So after that, the entire dynamics changed. So when they rejected me, I went out and found my own opportunity. And thereafter, the thing turned around. People thereafter asked for my articles without my sending them, and I could create the first, I'm not giving it to you. So, I mean, try to break free from the limit that is created by the college or the society you live in. I mean, a lot of my friends, when I was pitching to newspapers, they thought I was going crazy. Why would somebody publish a 17-year-old kid? But they did. because it's not the age that matters, it's the thought that matters. So during that time, my blog was very pretentiously philosophical, and one of my seniors said that your blog is very boring, nobody reads it, I get very bored. So I said I'll write a humorous story right now. And during that time, actually 2007 if you see, it was a time when I actually started reading fiction, and as you mentioned in the beginning, I started reading fiction with Chetan Bhagat's book. And for a person who has been aspiring to get into IIT 5.7 was like the best book ever. I used to admire APJ Abdul Kalam a lot, but thereafter Chetan Bhagat suddenly replaced my role model, replaced him as my role model. And at that time, I didn't read anything else, all these love stories during the first 2 years, we all have done that. So my mind was kind of limited. This is what a novel is. It's about 4 friends, 1 love interest, 1 villain, which might be mother of the girl, and which is the plot of my book, which I feel very embarrassed to now even tell the name. Oops, I fell in love, what a shitty name it is, sorry for that. So basically, and the reason is, this book got published, and in 6 months it became a bestseller. Right now it has more than 50,000 copies sold. So there were people like me who loved reading love stories. So that was the case, and after this I got a lot of criticism as well as appreciation. There were readers across India who were writing to me, and after this I wrote the sequel, and after that I wrote another book. It's a trilogy, basically a 3-book series. But then I started reading more books which are literary books, and then I realized that my limited mind could only fathom that love stories or college campus novels are the ones which can be classified as novels. But there are several other domains that you can write on. You can write on serious issues as well. And that was a time when I realized that I have very little experience in life, and to become good at writing, I have to have some life experience. And during that time, the venture thing happened. So my first experience was failing a venture, and thereafter I had to quit my own company. I was jobless, penniless, and despite this failure, I had a story to tell that was of my own failure. And during that time, I published my 4th book, and thereafter I decided that I need to have more experience, and I decided to fulfill my long forgotten travel dream. I had no money because I had wasted it all on my venture. So I spammed all the companies in India, and again my persistence came to my help, because after sending 250 mails across India, finally a company which is Ixigo.com sponsored my trip. So basically I was being paid to travel across the nation, and the reason they could derive benefit out of me was they would send me a lot of goodies which I would keep distributing to everybody I meet. So I was promoting them in return, and they sponsored my journey. So I traveled from March to May 2013, almost for a year and a half. And during that time I covered 23 states in 1.3 years, and during that time I started writing for The Hindu as well. I spoke at TEDx. And in February 2013, after finishing writing my book during the 1-year gap that I had, I published my 4th book, which is in your library, and I recommend this book to people who want to start up, because it's about what not to do in a startup. So you'll get to know what are the mistakes. For example, I talked about one aspect, that is finding the right business partner. There are several other aspects in the company which you can read. And during that time, after traveling, I realized that I need to learn a lot more. I mean, when you travel, you realize how little you know. Because everywhere you go, you encounter new economic landscape, new social landscape. You encounter the different politics in different areas. And that's when I decided that I will join a fellowship which teaches me all this. So right now I'm pursuing this fellowship, and I'm writing my travel book, which will come out by the end of this year, which is called Route to Roots. And finally, after 4 books, I can finally come up with a title that my father likes. Because oops, my father is always like, what's the kind of title that you write? I can't even show it to my boss. So finally there is a title that he likes. And the bottom line of this talk is simply that you are into management for a reason. The reason is to manage your dreams, not anything else. Thank you for inviting me. I can answer any question related to writing, publishing that you might have. And this is a quote from my fourth book, that don't let earning for your living stop you from living. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
So, do your 4 books give you sufficient quality to continue? I mean,
Right.
I'm not doubting your
It's not that.
Don't get me wrong.
I totally get that, and I'll talk about the finances now. Since you're MBA graduates, I've painted a very rosy picture of everything. So the thing is, thankfully, starting out with a light fiction book, the commercial fiction book, a love story, turned out to be a boon in my case, because 50,000 copies, the book has sold more than Salman Rushdie's book in India. It has sold more than Amitabh Ghosh's book in India. All these big shots sell around 5 to 10,000 copies, and this book has sold more because the market is large and the elite Indian readers are very little. So actually, this is what gave me the courage to start up, to leave my campus placement, because I was already earning from my books. But what has happened of late is that the sales decline. Basically, it's this kind of curve. So sales reaches a peak time during the first, second months of the release, and thereafter it keeps on declining until you write another book, which again triggers the sales. So in the first 3 books case, it actually sustained me after college. I was making decent amount of money, that is around 3 lakhs per annum. I'm actually disclosing it. But now with the advent of my 4th book, it is about entrepreneurship. The market is very limited. So my first 3 books have sold 70,000 copies, but the 4th book has till now sold only 8,000 copies. So suddenly there is a dip in sales. Now the reason why there are many people who criticize Chetan Bhagat for not evolving, for writing the same kind of stories all the time. But if you notice that he is very smart from a business sense. I could have continued writing love stories for my entire life, and I could have actually made a lot more money, because each book gives me around 10 to 15 rupees as a royalty. So imagine selling 50,000 books means around 7 lakh rupees. So I could have continued writing them for the rest of my life, but I didn't like the fact that I could continue writing. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to expand my horizons, which is why I'm breaking free. I'm undergoing a fellowship right now. I'm learning more. I'm even planning to go study more abroad in a year or 2. So that's the kind of dynamics. And it's very difficult to become just a full-time writer. So generally, if you see all the writers, they are generally journalist writers. So they write for magazines, and because through that you earn money. They go around colleges to speak. For example, I'm coming here. So again, it is adding revenue. Chetan Bhagat, for example, earns more money via lectures delivered at colleges. For one lecture, he charges around 2 to 3 lakh rupees in one college. So imagine if he's going around hundreds of colleges in a year. He's making 3 crore rupees just from colleges, which is much more than his royalty, which is around 1 crore, despite him being one of the highest selling authors. It all depends on margin as well. For example, Amish Tripathi gets much more money from his books than Chetan Bhagat does from his books, despite their sales being similar, because Amish Tripathi's book price is around 200 to 300. So the margin that he gets, if you talk about 10% of 300 rupees versus 10% of 140 rupees, 14 versus 30 rupees. So even if half the sales, you earn twice. So that's the financial dynamics. I mean, if you're pursuing a creative career, the problem is, in the initial years, the first 3-4 years, you don't earn much. But the beauty is, imagine 10 years down the line, I might be at such a level where I might be earning for one lecture something around 1 lakh. So I might not need to work at all. I mean, all these people like Ramchandra Guha, if you have read, these are full-time authors. They don't need, because they are earning from the royalty, and for one lecture, they charge 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees. So even if they give around 3 to 4 lectures, they are earning 5 to 6 lakh rupees a month. So they can actually sit at home and write, and plus their books are selling well. So It's a very different kind of market. A lot of people ask me this question that now that I'm writing a travel book, I could have started out with a travel book. But I feel that that would have been a very bad decision from the market point of view, because currently I can ask this question: how many of you have read any one travel book? Is there anybody? Nobody. But how many of you have read Chetan Bhagat or Ramesh Tripathi? You will raise your hand. So that's the point. Now I have a market base. I have around 60,000 readers in India. What I can do is, when I'm writing a travel book, I can actually induct the readers who were readers of my previous books to read a travel book. So I can introduce them to a new genre, much like I am a writer and I'm getting to know about a new genre through my evolution as a writer. Similarly, I can make the reader evolve with me. So which is a good motivation to have in this process. Any other question? Yes?
So for any young author, the main problem is approaching the publishers. So like you mentioned that with you it was just by chance. So otherwise, how would you suggest people, like networking, one thing you know that you have good networking. But then what are the other ways probably a young author or a new author can approach?
Right. So, I talked about my fourth book was published by Random House. First three books were published with Shrishti, which is an indigenous publisher. They started Ravinder Singh, all these people have been published by Shrishti initially. So when I wrote my first book, that was in a blog. It got very popular. And then I approached Shrishti. It was in 2008 when I approached them. That time the market was not so flooded with authors as it is right now. Right now everybody aspires to be a novelist, because the authors of the current days have made it look so easy, because that's the kind of English I write. Even I can write. That's the feeling Chetan Bhagat gave to me, because that's the kind of English I can write too. So even I can tell my story. And during that time it was easy to get into the publishing genre. But abhi the scene is very difficult, because right now my publisher tells me that initially he used to get around 2 to 3 proposals per week. Now he gets about 30 proposals per week. So to sort through them, it's difficult. The thing to do is, either you can get an author to refer you. If you write well, send your writing to me. Let me be the better judge. If I like your writing, I'll give you the email ID. I can refer you. This is the way to network. You can network with me basically. And later on, otherwise there's another way. Recently, thanks to these overshot of number in the number of authors, there are many agents, literary agents, which have come up. What they do is they act as middlemen between publishers and authors. So if you give it to a literary agent, they will judge your manuscript on the basis of the merit of your manuscript. If they like it, it doesn't mean your manuscript is brilliant. They'll make it, they'll edit it, they'll polish it, they'll make it publisher friendly, and then they will pitch on your behalf, and they'll take a piece of your royalty. 10 to 15% of your royalty will go to them, which is a fair cut because you don't have to go through all the hassles. But even to crack into agents is difficult because you have to be good to be picked up by agents as well.
Apart from novel writing. So how do I start off with that? I've been told that you require degrees for that.
If you want to get into film journalism as a career, so the first thing to do is to build a portfolio. If you're approaching a company that you want to be a film journalist, what is it that you can show to them? Do you have any number of publishing already done? So start off as a blog, start writing film reviews on a blog. Secondly, start pitching those well-written pieces to magazines. And the easy way is just go to any magazine site, and if you open, for example, Tehelka's site, you can go and check their about. If you check their about, they have this editor's name. So generally the name of the editor is first name @tehelka.com. So currently, for example, I'm giving away the ID. His name is Ramesh Sharma, who is the chief editor of Tehelka. So just write a mail to ramesh@tehelka.com with the subject article pitch and the topic of your article, and talk about you are a student at BIMTech, or if you don't want to talk about, you can portray yourself as a freelance journalist. Yeah, I'm a freelance journalist and I've been writing book reviews for a long time. Don't tell about your publisher not, because first time when you get published you can talk about I was published and I've written this review. You see. So you might get selected. This is the way I proceeded because I want to get into journalism immediately. I mean, after finishing my degree, I'll be joining Indian Express most probably. So for that, I had talked to a journalist long ago. He said that you need to have a portfolio. If you already have some articles published, that means that you know what kind of articles work and what doesn't. So the amount of time invested in training you will be very little. So they hire generally these kind of people with some experience. Because if you don't have a journalism degree, you won't otherwise understand. Any questions? Thank you.
Can we have a bigger round of applause once again? I'd like to start thanking Director Sir and Dr. Anupam Verma who are not here. I'd like to thank Manojata ma'am for giving this opportunity to me to coordinate with her and get in touch with Harsh and for all of us this opportunity of getting inspired, because I have been asked this question several times how I started freelancing, and the stories which I would tell were not as believable as his are, like he bumped into a publisher in a cafe. So, I mean, when you meet a person who's professionally accomplished is only when things become more believable to you. A few things which I'd like to share about what Harsh spoke with us, inspired us through the examples of people who converted their passion into their profession, something, a step which most of us are scared of taking. Talked about the ways forward which are practical, such as growing your beard and other things, and all the more they are in our hand. The first step to take is easy, and you can always go ahead any day. And a few ideas such as networking, which our profession also teaches, the course that we are doing. Thank you for praising the struggle and the enjoyment which pursuing your dream brings. I mean, struggle is something which is not repulsive, it is the most attractive thing. And finally, something very important, practical aspects of the financial dynamics of starting up as a writer. At this, I'm sure that all of us, we have acquired the highest inspiration and the highest level of motivation to go ahead and take up our dreams. As a token of our gratitude, we would like Harsh to accept a memento from our side, and I'd like to ask Shrishta to present it. Thank you so much. That was from our side, and we hope that this is just the beginning, and Harsh keeps on visiting BIMTech at other landmarks of his life, and so that we can celebrate his success in future as well. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for joining us.